What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 55 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm excited, as always, to get into these episode review with you guys. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 55 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? I thought the episode was good, but there is some things that I want to discuss in regards to the Goha siblings and what they're doing with the Goha siblings, and some things that I'm just a little bit concerned of with these characters, but we'll get into that a little bit later on into the video. But getting into the actual episode, the episode starts off with a scene with the Goha siblings. You see, obviously, Eugene, or I think his name is supposed to be pronounced Eugene because of the whole theme of this episode, Eugene in the sea. I think they're trying to say Eugene in the sea. So if I say Eugene throughout this video, I do apologize. I'm just used to saying Eugene. I'm pretty sure I said Eugene when I did my character discussion video when I went over the voice actors and all that stuff, so I'm just used to calling him that. So if I do call him that throughout the video, I do apologize. I'll try to call him Eugene. I know it doesn't really matter, but I do know that it's supposed to be Eugene in the sea, but I'm just used to saying Eugene. But getting back into it, Eugene, you see him running on the treadmill. You know, he's stating how he wants to kind of get revenge on what ended up happening to Yugioh after what happened in the last episode when Yugioh ended up losing the duel and ended up losing his spot as a president of Goha Corporation. So he wants to kind of get back at Yuga and the crew for what ended up happening. And you know, you even have a kind of a dialogue with Yuka and Yugioh, and Yuka is really starting not to like Yugioh because Yugioh stated in this episode that basically he doesn't care. He doesn't care what ends up happening to Yuka, Eugene, Euron, which we did see a scene with Euron. It seemed like he didn't want to eat his breakfast, and you know, he was getting talked by that drone that breakfast is very important and you need to eat, and you can see that he's just a very shy character, which based off the bio that we got in this character from one of the voice actors, I'm not surprised this is the way he's acting. So yeah, he's an interesting character, I guess, since that's the first time Euron has talked, and I think this is the first time that Eugene has actually talked in this show, so we'll get into Eugene in a little bit. But Euron, he's definitely a to himself character, and I think for the way they were portraying him, I think they're portraying him the way I expected it to be. But getting back to the whole Yugioh talk, Yugioh basically says, I don't care what happens to you guys, as long as you're willing to put up your present or your line as a president up on the line, I don't care what ends up happening to you. So clearly, the only goal that he wants is his goal is unclear. All we know is that he doesn't care what happens to them. He just wants them to put up their roles as presidents of Goha Corporation on the line. And Yuka kind of gets a little bit mad about this. Like, again, she is not really liking Yugioh right now. Early prediction, and I really do hope this is a thing that ends up happening. I want to see two of the Goha siblings face each other. More specifically, I want to see Yuka versus Yugioh sometime throughout this arc. I really do want to see that duel happening in this arc. I don't know if it's actually going to happen, but I would really love if this duel actually happens, because there has definitely been some bickering between these two. I think the only other ones that would make sense is probably Yugioh versus Yugioh, but I just really don't see that. I feel like if they're going to have a matchup between the two Goha siblings, if the members of the Goha siblings had to face each other, I do believe it's going to be Yugioh versus Yuka. Probably Yugioh would win the duel if I had to predict, just because of the way they're trying to take Yugioh in this arc. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I really do want to kind of see that duel going forward, especially since of the dialogue, not from the last episode, because we even saw some dialogue with them in the last episode, but even in this episode. So that's just something that I wanted to kind of bring up, and something I want to kind of be touched on more going forward, and in a potential duel between each other. But you then see Eugene continue running on the treadmill to eventually he ends up breaking it and actually runs out the window and falls right into the sea into the sea right outside of where they were at. And you even have some dialogue when him, he's enjoying Earth's water, which makes me believe that wherever the Goha siblings were living at, the water was not the same. He was even talking about the taste of the sea salt, so that was pretty interesting. Then you just see this fin coming out of nowhere, it starts circling them, and at first I thought it was going to be a shark that was just going to appear out of nowhere, but no, it's just a little cute dolphin that just pops out of the water, and you just see the two staring at each other before you get into the opening, which we'll get into a little bit more about that scene because we do have some kind of backstory with that a little bit later on. But going into after the opening, we see a scene with Yuga, Roman, and Gakuto. They're all looking on the tablet of what's going on with the Goha robot. Obviously the robot is still, or not the Goha robot, the Rush Duel robot. It's still doing its stretches. You even see Luke in the background actually doing the exact same stretches as the Rush Duel robot. And, they're kind of just discussing about the whole situation with the Goha siblings and even stating that, if we can defeat them 5 more times, we can save Rush Duels. And another thing that was said during this, which is very interesting, is Roman states not only can we stop Rush Duels being destroyed, but we can also save Yuga from becoming one of the members of, or being a Goha employee. Now, that is a very interesting line. Now, you technically are saving him from being a Goha employee, because that's also with the stipulation as well that he would become a Goha employee if he ends up losing. However, the way it was worded, it sounded more like a foreshadowing than an actual statement. Because yes, again, Yuga also has on the line that he will become a Goha employee as well. But the way that it was phrased made it sound like that they're foreshadowing that even if the Goha siblings lose, which I do believe that they are going to lose in this arc, every villain has done it so far, but Yuga will still become one of the members. I know a lot of people don't believe that Yuga is anymore after seeing that robot from the last episode. However, this is a reason why I was kind of mentioning the split from the opening, because going back to the opening real quick, that shot where we see the Goha siblings in the silhouette character, they did not change the silhouette character. Now, you might not think that doesn't mean anything. However, Sevens has been really trying to change the visuals of their openings. I think back in opening 1, they were changing their visuals pretty frequently. So when a scene like that with a silhouette character, if we got introduced to the silhouette character, if that drone was that silhouette character, which some people still do believe, then why is that character still silhouetted in that opening? They would not have that there if that character was that other member that we saw in the opening. I just do not believe it. Now, does it mean that it's still 100% Yuga? Not necessarily. It can still be another character that we might have not met yet, that they don't want to introduce us to yet, but it still is up for grabs that Yuga can be one of these members. It's not completely destroyed that this cannot be Yuga. I still think there is a good chance that this is Yuga that we see in that opening, but we'll just have to wait and see. But in terms of the whole thing, that theory was just destroyed because of the drone from the last episode, and we even see it in this episode as that was the same drone that was talking to Euron. I just don't think it deconfirms that Yuga is one of the members. I just wanted to start off with that as well. That was just something I did notice with the opening, because that was a concern that I saw on Twitter, on Reddit, even a couple of YouTube comments from other people's videos that robot was the silhouette character. It is not the silhouette character. It's probably just a placeholder. I have really no idea what its purpose is, but we'll have to wait and see. But after that whole entire dialogue, you see Eugene finally confront Yuga and the crew on this boat with wheels, and you see him in this Hawaiian shirt with some swim trunks with his guitar, and he's just singing a song about the sea. And let me just start off by saying this. Maybe this was just me, but did anyone else get Atticus Rose or Fubuki from the subbed version vibes from this episode, from Eugene as a character? Not only from his personality, but just from that scene in particular. I don't know why, but that just reminded me so much of Atticus Rose from the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, which this whole entire episode had 3 separate references to GX, or at least I do believe that there is some similarities with GX and what they did. And this was one of those scenes, because I just got straight up Atticus vibes from this episode. And you know what's funny about that too, now thinking about it? There was actually a scene in GX where Atticus or Fubuki actually had a guitar in a Hawaiian shirt with, I think he was just wearing shorts. I believe that was the same episode when he was trying to hook up Asuka with Manjomi. I could have swear that was the same episode that I'm thinking about. And he was singing a song. I don't exactly remember what he was singing about, but I think he was just playing the guitar because he was trying to make the mood seem right, because again, he was trying to hook Manjomi up with his sister, which one of the funniest things that GX ever did. I still cannot believe to this day that Atticus tried to hook his sister up with the main rival. I still found that hilarious to this day. And then you have Eugene coming out of nowhere just singing about the sea. So the circumstances are different, but I don't know, I just got the vibes. Even the personalities, I felt like they were pretty similar. I mean, I always saw Fubuki as more of a joking character. Yeah, he got a little bit more serious in season 4, when Fujiwara got introduced, but that was a whole different scenario. I feel like if Eugene really needed to get serious, he would. And you kind of even saw him serious to some degree at the beginning of this episode, because he wanted to get revenge for what ended up happening to Yugioh, which we did see Yugioh in this episode. We did learn that he actually goes to the Yugioh 7th Elementary School now, which shocks the entire crew and probably shocks all the fans as well, because that was something I was not really expecting that actually happen. Maybe it's just me. I probably shouldn't say everyone. It was probably just me that really thought about that. But the fact that after the last episode, from being a president of Goha Corporation, now he's actually going back to school. He's now a member of the Goha 7th Elementary School, which, I mean, it makes sense. He can do whatever he wants now. He can ride his hovercraft looking thing whenever he wants to. So that was a pretty interesting scene that I was not expecting. You even have some dialogue of Eugene reacting to the whole situation as well. And he also sets up the field for this, which I do like this about the siblings, how they just are able to control this scene. We see Neil again, and he basically makes this school into a beach area, which was very interesting. And then that's when he gets all set up and ready to duel. And that's why he also had the boat. That way he can drive to the location as well. And then you also have the scene where, Yuga and the crew were given their swimsuits to kind of fit with the theme of this episode. You also see Kaizo obviously simping for Roman again. And one of my favorite moments of the episode, Roman just straight up punches Kaizo in the face and just kicks him right into the water. I mean, did he deserve it? Absolutely. Was it funny? Absolutely, it was funny. That was one of my favorite moments of the episode, because God, that character just deserved it. I don't know why I hate this character so much. Maybe it's just because of this reason and what some other words he's been saying throughout the episode. I still have not forgot about episode 53, where he said, now that I know Yuga's weakness, I can use it against him. Like, God, I hate this character, man. Seriously, holy crap. But getting back onto topic, after that scene, you have Eugene obviously challenging Yuga to a duel, because obviously these Goha siblings are all going after Yuga. But however, Yuga cannot swim. We learned that in this episode, that Yuga cannot swim. So Luke decides, you know what? I'm going to be the one that takes out. He literally takes off the jacket he was wearing, because, you had Yuga and Luke wearing like jackets with their swim trunks, and you even have Gakuto in a full suit, which was pretty interesting, of the difference between which I feel like that fits Gakuto, so I'm not complaining about that whatsoever. I feel like if Gakuto was going to a beach or a pool or something like that, that suit that he was wearing in this episode, that full body swimsuit, that's something I would see Gakuto actually wearing. So I feel like the suits, as well as Yuga, Roman, and Luke suits, fit perfectly well with their characters. I know a lot of people were surprised that Gakuto was wearing a full body suit, but I feel like it fits him perfectly. But two other scenes as well. The first scene is the swirly scene. As the stage is getting set, you have Sebastian putting out the seashells to kind of give it that beach theme, and then you see a scene of Swirly. He's looking at the whole area, and he's like, the beach, and then you have this weird looking smile off him, and that was the end of the scene, which we'll get into that a little bit later on, because you do have a scene with them later on. Then you also have the scene of Roman ended up falling off of the platform because she ended up losing her balance when the area around them was actually rising, and Euro came in, swooped on by, and was able to save Roman from falling, even saying that, hey, if I was 0.1 second early or 1 second late, I was not going to be able to save you, which I mean, I don't know what 0.1 second would have changed. I just found that scene hilarious just for the sole fact that what would that really have changed? What would a point of a second or 0.1 of a second really do? But I don't know. I just found that scene kind of hilarious, and that's when we actually learned about him actually transferring to Goa 7th Elementary as well. But wanted to get those out of the way. I didn't want to forget to mention those as well. But getting into the actual duel. The duel itself I thought was good. I mean, we got to see Levier Dragon Dalius, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce that card's name. We ended up seeing that card. We also saw Umi as well, which was a really nice card to see again. Obviously, the ice monster also fits with Umi, as by destroying Umi, you can basically nuke you and your opponent's boards, like your monsters, except for Dalius. So Luke ended up in this duel taking a massive amount of damage. So that was pretty cool to see it actually activating its effect and being able to use a deck that makes that ace monster fit perfectly with the deck. So I did like that as well. It was cool to see that card again. Did not realize that actually was in GX, or at least I didn't remember it. It was used in GX. I think it was the pirate that used it in GX. You remember when Judai faced that pirate? I can't remember the exact episode, but I think the episode was that he was trying to recruit Judai, and that was basically what the whole duel was about. And obviously Judai ended up winning the duel, but this card was used in that duel. I don't think it was the ace. I can't remember if this was the ace or not. I don't think it was, but I do believe it was from that duel. I was told that this was a card from GX. I personally cannot remember it to save my life, and which is very odd because I remember GX pretty well, I felt like. So the fact that I don't remember that card in particular being used, which to be fair, it was the duel I'm thinking of was an obscure duel, and I would be surprised if anyone really remembered that duel. I mean, I'm surprised I remember it to some degree. So yeah, I mean, even though I don't remember the actual duel, I do know it was used in the GX anime. But it was, either way, it was still cool to see that monster. We actually did learn where Eugene actually got his deck, because there was actually backstory with the deck as well, and that's where we get into the whole scene with the dolphin. As you know, he starts to hang out with the dolphin, and the dolphin gives him this treasure chest that the dolphin ended up having for some reason. I think he might have found it underwater or something like that. He opens the chest and grabs the deck right out of it and says, "This was what the dolphin gave to me." And that's the deck that I ended up wanting to use on Earth, because I had grown a bond with these sea creatures, which was a very interesting scene. And I did like that scene, that we kind of got a little bit of a backstory with the deck. I thought that was pretty cool as well, because Euro stated in this episode that this was not his normal deck. This is a completely different deck that Euro didn't even know he had. So that was another interesting scene, and that kind of indicated that maybe he got this deck somehow in Earth. And that's when we got the scene with the dolphin, and that's when that whole thing was explained. So that was pretty cool to see as well. I did really like how they were doing the end scene as well at the end of this duel. Luke on the final turn was able to get his meta gears onto the field, activates his effect, where monsters and trap cards I think can't affect it. I think that's the way that card's effect works. Again, I don't really play the Rush Duel game, so if I don't remember an effect very well, don't yell at me. I just don't know the Rush Tool cards very well. But he goes to attack with Meta Gears. Eugene ends up activating a trap card. Now, it's a card that doesn't actually affect his Meta Gears. That's not what the whole card's purpose was, because the card allowed him to draw one card from his deck. And if he drew Umi, he was able to deal 500 points of damage to Luke, which I believe Luke was already down to 200 life points during this duel. So if he drew Umi, Luke would have lost. And I was like, is Luke going to lose? Like, what in the world is happening right now? And you see that scene where he's getting ready to draw the card. He draws the card, and I'm like at the edge of my seat. Like, is he gonna actually lose this duel? Is Luke gonna finally lose for the first time in this show? And then he looks at the card. He draws, I think the card Creek, I believe was the card he ended up drawing in this episode. And obviously he failed to be able to get the card he needed. And Luke was able to attack and win himself the duel. Now, there's two things that I had seen with this duel. The first thing is that the negative response with this duel result. I know quite a bit of people wanted Luke to lose this duel in this episode, and I don't blame people for it because of the sole reason that me included, I want to see Luke lose one time in this show. I think it's very interesting that they've kept him undefeated. I don't think really that many characters are undefeated. I don't count the characters that have only dueled once and that's it, and they won that duel like Sushiko. I don't count that. Luke is the strongest character in the show so far, and a lot of people, including myself, want him to be knocked down a peg a little bit, and that's in the way of giving him a loss. And I do think that this could have been a good opportunity to give Luke a loss right now. However, I'm not really mad about it as most people are. Now, don't get me wrong. I still want to see Luke lose more than anyone else. I do want to see him lose. I think that's a great way to give him development. However, the writers just thought it was not a good time right now. And I think that's completely fine. Unless he never loses in the series, if he ends up going this entire show without losing a duel, then yeah, I would look back at this duel and say, yeah, he could have lost this duel. I think this would have been a good time to lose the duel. I know a lot of people say the Yuga and Luke round 2 duel, I feel like could have been a loss for him as well, and I do see that. I do think if one of those duels that Yuga and Luke had between each other, if one of those times Luke had to lose, I would have personally said the first one. I think the second one fit more with Luke because of the way they did it. I just felt like that made complete sense. And plus, Luke wanted to fight for it more than Yuga, so I felt like he deserved it a little bit more. But maybe that's just me, though. And then the other complaint that I see has to do what ends up happening to Eugene at the end of this episode. Well, there's also another thing. Actually, before I get into that, the scene when Eugene drews the card, they made that into a comedic moment, which, me personally, I did not like that at all. Why did you make that intense scene comedic? I understand Sevens is trying to be comedic, and I think it should be. I've always said this numerous times. You know, we came back from a show that was very serious, so to have a more comedic show, I think is what we needed. However, when we had these intense moments, I feel like you ruined the intention of the scene by making it a joke right after that. Like, why do that? I think an easy way you could have fixed that is when he draws the card and looks at it, everything is in silence, and maybe he either doesn't do anything, he's just looking at the card, Metagear's attacks, and his life points become 0, because that would have indicated to the viewers that he did not draw Umi, because if he did drew Umi, it would have activated right away. He wouldn't have thrown the duel right there. I don't believe that. Or have it to where he closes his eyes or something like that as Metagears ends up attacking. I feel like that just makes it more intense, and then when we finally see him draw the card, just no dialogue. He says, or maybe he shows the card and it shows that it's Creek, and he just says, the card I drew was Creek, and then that's when everyone gets surprised, and then you get back to the music, and then you attack again. Not have that comedic moment. Yeah, he could be upset with that. I'm fine with that, but have it. I think it was more the song that they did, you know, that was the comedic song. I was just not a big fan of that whatsoever. But getting off of that, then we see the scene of him basically doing the Team Rocket blasting off again. Goes, and as he's flying through the air, he gets stripped of his role as president, as we all expected, and then lands into the water and is now free to do whatever he wants. Then that's when we see Yuka kind of get off her chair, and she's like, you know what, I'm going to be the next one to duel against Yuga's crew. And, you know, she's kind of a little bit upset about the whole situation, as she's been basically, for not only this entire episode, but ever since this whole stipulation of if you lose a duel, you lose your role as a president of Goha Corporation. So we do know that, based off of this, that it seems like Yuka is going to be dueling in the next episode, which is pretty exciting to see her finally take center stage to duel for the Goha siblings. But getting back into that scene, as that's what I wanted to kind of end this episode off with. The scene of him losing his role as a president. It was expected, but it makes me a little bit concerned because now we have 2 of the 5 presidents lose their roles as presidents of Goha Corporation. Now, to be fair, it doesn't seem like they really wanted to continue being presidents. I mean, you saw Yugioh in the last episode. All he wants to do is ride his hovercraft in the wind. And then you have Eugene in this episode. He just wants to be in the sea and hang out with the sea creatures. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention too, that scene with the dolphin, that just reminded me of that scene in GX where Judai was talking with Aqua Dolphin for the first time. And that's when he got the Neospatian cards and that he was able to upgrade his deck. I don't know, that just whole entire scene just reminded me of that from GX. So I did want to kind of bring that up as well, because I know I would have got roasted if I did not mention that. But him losing the role, I just feel like is going too quick. We are 3 episodes into this arc, and already 2 of the 5 presidents have lost their position at Goha Corporation. Again, it was expected, but why do it in 3 episodes? Why are they doing this so quickly? Well, I think I know the reason why. They're doing another 13 episode arc series, which you guys know, if you guys have been watching the channel for a while, I don't like the 13 episode arcs at all. I even did a whole entire video on it. I just don't like the concept of the 13 episode arcs. I think you restrict yourself too much because you're trying to do a story and you don't really have that much to really do anything, to have character development and all that stuff. Sure, you can still do the story, but how much development can you do in 13 episodes? You just restrict yourself too much. And that's what we're kind of seeing, because we know nothing about these Goha siblings at all, which again, we're only 3 episodes in, so we can still learn about them, but the fact that they keep knocking them off one by one every episode, and who knows, Yuka might lose her next duel and might get her role as a Goha president ripped away from her as well, and then you have Euron and Yugioh now. But why are they doing it so quickly? Because I felt like you don't need to be doing this right away. I felt like you could have expanded it to have them do a little bit more as villains, but maybe have them realize it throughout the duel, or like the time on Earth, that, you know, I've been this president for so long that I'm starting to be a little bit more accustomed to Earth and what they have, and I want to kind of have more of that. But right now you can't really do that, or do all of that to some degree, because you're trying to do a 13 episode arc. I would have loved if they would actually have some back and forth, like maybe have Luke and Eugene duel twice, and basically make it to where, like, maybe he's starting to realize the more he's on Earth, the more he likes what Earth has in store that he couldn't really get in space. So I feel like you could have done more of that kind of stuff if you were down, like if you had more time. But because I do believe they're trying to restrict it to 13 episodes again, you're not going to be able to do that kind of a scene, because you're trying to more focus on the story with Yugioh and all that stuff. So you're really restricting yourself from what you can do because you're doing it in 13 episodes. So I think that is the route they're going. They're going 13 episode arcs again, and that's why you're having these presidents lose so quickly. Am I pretty upset about that? Yeah, I wish they would stop doing 13 episode arcs, but I guess that's just the way they're going to be doing Sevens for I guess the foreseeable future. But with all that being said, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of episode 55. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like the episode? And what were your guys' thoughts on the duel? Did you like the result? Did you just like the dueling action? What were your thoughts on seeing Dalias this episode? And just general, all your guys' thoughts on it and all the topics that I brought up throughout this review. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts down below. But guys, that is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.